All you Canelo fanboys might not be ready to hear this, but I'm about to expose your boy a little bit. And it's not really exposing because at the end of the day, I respect Canelo. I think he's a good fighter. You know, I'm not going to call him a great fighter because in my opinion, I'm going to sound like a hater, but I don't think he's great. I don't see him as great. You know, I think the most recent fighter that we've had that was great was Pacquiao, and he's coming back. Obviously, you know, it's crazy to see him get a title shot when he's coming off a loss, hasn't fought in, 4 years, and ultimately is getting a shot at Mario Barrios, who is a WBC title holder, and they're going to fight for the title ultimately. So it's like, it's weird, but, to go back to Canelo, I think he's a good fighter at the end of the day. I don't think he's amazing because the whole purpose of this video is to kind of show, also in hand why Crawford and Canelo is a really close fight, because at the end of the day, Canelo, he's been good. He's been good. Recently he had that William Skull performance. He had the Berlanga performance where, in both fights he hasn't looked tremendous. Obviously, it has to do with the opponents as well. But Canelo hasn't really stopped anybody, and a lot of people are saying that Terence Crawford's going to get stopped by Canelo when he hasn't really had a stoppage win in a while. So it's like, you take that into account, and then he's going to be fighting Bud of all people, and then I'm supposed to believe, Canelo's going to stop Bud. It's just something where I'm like, I don't think it's going to happen. I think at this point in Canelo's career where, yeah, he's younger than Terence Crawford, but he's aging faster than Terence Crawford is at the end of the day. His punch output, his activity has been so low, and he just doesn't have the stamina to keep up with a lot of these fighters. Not to say that Skull was trying to fight, that he was trying to win the fight against Canelo Alvarez, but Canelo also, when he cuts the ring off, he doesn't look as fast as other guys. When guys are trying to move a little bit, I'm not only talking about Skull. I just think that guys like Caleb Plant, even though Canelo ended up stopping Caleb Plant, Crawford's faster. He's going to be a smaller target than all of these guys that Canelo's faced recently. So at the end of the day, it's going to be a harder stylistic matchup for Canelo Alvarez than people think. Boxing's not all about how big you are, and Canelo's not even much bigger than Terence Crawford. He might be, a little bit bigger and wider than Terence Crawford come fight night, but in terms of height, Crawford's going to be the bigger fighter. We'll see who's physically stronger in there. You guys are all saying that Terence is going to be, weaker than Canelo at the weight class. We'll see when they get into a clinch and Terence Crawford ties up Canelo. We'll see, who's the stronger fighter, because I got a good feeling it's going to be Terence Crawford and not Canelo Alvarez. Even though, he may have the muscles, he might look bigger in there. He looks like the macho fighter among, Crawford and Canelo. Canelo may look a little bit bigger. Trust me, when it comes to pure strength, I'm pretty sure Crawford's going to be stronger than Canelo on fight night. And I think that physicality is going to matter. And not only that, it's going to be about, how quick Crawford is just on his, not on his bike, but like he's going to be mobile. He's not going to be a stationary target. And like I said, Crawford's going to be smaller than a lot of Canelo's past opponents, meaning he's going to be a more difficult target to really land on, because the lighter fighters are much faster. They're much more active, and they're mobile. They're going to move around the ring more. If Canelo couldn't stop, William Skull, it's going to be hard for him to land a big shot on Crawford. But, I expect Crawford to fight way more than William Skull and make it a more interesting fight, for the fans, because, Crawford's just not one of those guys like Charlo. Respectfully, Charlo, in my opinion, came in for a payday. A lot of these guys against Canelo, they come in there and they're already, mentally defeated. They just want to, get through the fight, not get knocked out, and, grab that paycheck. So, look at Terence Crawford. He's just not cut from that cloth to the point where he's going to do that, and I have no business being a Terence Crawford glazer or anything like that, but at the end of the day, he stopped one of my favorite fighters, and I don't think that's the reason why I think he beats Canelo. I think he beats Canelo because Canelo's not as good as people think. He's a good fighter. We all know he's a good fighter. He's the cash cow of the sport. That has nothing to do with the fact that I'm telling you guys in his most recent performances, he hasn't looked that good. So that's why I picked Terence Crawford. Terence Crawford is a mover. He's gonna, at least in this fight against Canelo Alvarez, trust me, he's gonna be moving a lot. He's gonna outbox him. Terence Crawford's already said he doesn't have to knock out Canelo. He just has to beat him. So that's his game plan right there. He's already told you guys what he's gonna do. And come September, you're gonna see Terence Crawford move and box Canelo Alvarez and force him to use his feet and use that gas tank, and we'll see how, you know, Canelo reacts to that. If he's gonna be able to cut that ring off, use his footwork to match Crawford's foot speed and hand speed, and we'll see what happens. But as of now, you know, just fighting, you know, William Skull and seeing how Canelo's performing, it's just not something where I can say, I think Canelo's confidently gonna beat Terence Crawford. I gotta lean towards Crawford right now, because even though Crawford's older, if you look at how they perform, Terence Crawford hasn't really shown that he gets tired as much as Canelo does. Canelo shows that he gets clearly tired, and that's going to be a problem against arguably the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world, Terence Crawford, and that's why I got to go with Bud by decision. But, you know, I think it's going to be interesting. It's definitely, you know, an interesting experiment for the boxing fans to see. You're going to see a guy go up in weight, but ultimately I think Terence Crawford will be just fine in there. He's a strong individual, and he's a great fighter. So I think he's going to handle business against Canelo Alvarez and pull off a decision win. So let me know in the comments what you guys think. Thank you guys for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys on the next NAS Boxing video. Peace.